Conflict. When I say the word conflict, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? For me, it's chaos, pure chaos. But conflict can have many perspectives depending on the person and the place. Because the definition of conflict is a serious disagreement or argument, or it can also be a belly conflict that that goes around weapons, territory. We can find conflict everywhere, in workplaces, in school, in our homes, or even on the streets. When there's a lot of traffic and somebody doesn't turn on the lights or past a red light, there's a conflict. But we're gonna focus mainly on workplace and school. I wanna drop out a quote real quick that is, talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championship. Michael Jordan, a very famous basketball player. Keep that in mind. Well, to know more about people's perspective on conflict, I made a survey and asked them to tell me, in their opinion, what is the source of conflict? Some people said poor communication, different points of view, lack of communication, lack of communication again, absence of communication and respect involved between two people, different opinions and different ways to solve a problem, difference in opinion, disagreement, poor communication again, lack of communication, the way we communicate, communication itself, the interpretation or indication of the professor or the students, the professors to the students, misunderstanding. Well, at first glimpse, the word that comes most regularly or very often is communication. According to 16 people, the majority of them think or agree that communication is the source of conflict. Mainly lack, absence, or poor communication can be the source of the conflict. But there's also another pattern. This pattern is difference, points of view. So the second pattern is the difference of points of view that people have. The different because we as people have different mindset. We learn differently. We see the world and perceive the world from different perspective. We live in our own world and sometimes they collide. So the answer of the difference of opinions and way to solve the problem is super valid in my opinion. We'll talk about this in a bit, but let's keep going, okay? The second question of the survey was, in your opinion, what is the best way to avoid conflict? I think there's multiple ways to avoid conflict. Looking previously at what we saw, we need to be very consistent and very clear with our communication. Let's see what 16 people said. You need empathy, respect of opinions, respect other people's opinion. First of all, be calm to be able to dialogue, talk about the problem. Communication, efficient communication and respect and tolerance of each person or nation. Face it with empathy and communication to improve the ways the channels of communication. Keep your own ideas while and not affect others. Not tolerance. Comment and listen to others. Talking, presenting different points of view, proper communication, direct communication, talk that the other person be clear and ask for an explanation. I have no idea. That is an answer. Talk and listen. Again, I was right. Communication, since it's the source of conflict, the best way to avoid conflict is to be clear on our words. For example, if you're not very clear on what you're trying to explain, or you're not the best at explaining your ideas, you might get a little bit of conflict because of misunderstandings. As we can see, empathy is a very good response. We always have to look the world with empathy and not with anger and disrespectful behaviors. Empathy can bring people together and bring tolerance and respect. And as empathy brings respect, respecting other people's opinion is a good response. Everybody has different points of view. We all have to respect them and be as polite as possible, so we don't offend the other person and start a conflict. Be calm is a very good response, since when you're calm, you can think better rather than being under pressure. You think irrationally. Discuss the problem is one of the best answers I've read, because sometimes the conflict is there, the problem is there, but we never touch the subject or approach the problem. Some people just leave it there and the problem just gets snowball effect. It keeps growing and growing, and then after they approach the problem, it's too late. Well, I don't want to extend too much on this, but the main point is to be respectful, have tolerance, be clear on your ideas, be direct on your ideas, stand up and respect other people's ideas, and also listen and talk. Dialogue. That's a very good one. Dialogue. Then, the third question. Do you believe that poor communication is the source of the problem? I wrote this question because, as the vast majority, we all think communication is the source of problems. So let's see what they say. Well, here's the graphic, and there were 5 options. If they strongly agreed on the previous questions, if they believe that poor communication is the source of problems, if they agree, if they're neutral, like they agree to disagree, or they have a different idea and maybe there's something else, so there's the disagree, or they completely disagree. As we can see, 43.8% strongly agree with the idea that poor communication is the source of problems, and 56% agree. So basically, we all agree that poor communication can generate conflict. The fourth question is, the lack of resources as a role can be the root of a conflict. And well, let me explain a little bit. Everybody has to have a role, something to do, and a specialty, a role where they excel, where they're very good. So when the role is completely different from what they work on, it can cause conflict. Because what if you're an artist and they put you in the area of math or something completely different from what you are meant to be, right? Here we can see a better diversity of answers. We can see that most of the have agree that lack of roles can be a problem, and 12% agree, another 12% disagree, and 25% stay neutral. They are not very sure if it can be a problem or not, but vast majority, again, majority agree that lack of roles can be a problem. Then, can the performance of a teacher or student cause problem? I ask this because there's 2 points of view that you can see, or 3, depending on who you are. If you're the teacher, maybe your students are very loud, it could happen and they can cause problems. Or maybe they're not paying attention to you and they get confused, and then when exam period comes and they didn't understand or pay attention, and then they start complaining about their bad grades, it can cause conflict. And I feel you, teachers. I'm very sorry for you for having to deal with those things. And then it comes the point of view of a student. Students can definitely complain about a teacher's performance if the teacher is not answering properly the questions or not even bother to answer questions. Can be often problematic. Or maybe when the teacher doesn't understand their student if they are very busy, but the students also have to understand that the teacher can also be very busy because everybody has a life. Or, as a third point of view, you're a director and you need to stay neutral, right? Look for the problem. Sorry, I extend a little bit, but let's continue. Well, 56.3 agree that the performance can cause problems. 12% disagree, and 25 again stood neutral. And we cannot see very clearly, well, we cannot see it if they strongly believe the percentage, but again, more than half agree that the performance of a student or a teacher can cause problems. I believe that the ones that didn't agree, I say that maybe it was another factor, I'll talk a little bit later. Next question is, can the lack of reward for the effort cause conflict? I wrote this question because sometimes when you do a homework or a project and you're really invested in and you put a lot of time and effort just to get disappointed by the grade that the teacher gave you can be very problematic. So yeah, that's the question I asked, and I think this has the biggest answering diversity. We finally have strongly disagree. Now the chart has a better percentage. 31.3% agree on it. 80.8 strongly agree that lack of effort can cause conflict. And then 12.5% stood neutral. 31.3 disagree on this idea, and a percentage that we don't know strongly disagree. To be in both points of view. I already gave an example while explaining, so I think that was the thought process of the people who agree. But for the people that disagreed or stood neutral, maybe it's because it's not always about the reward. Sometimes it's about the process, the trouble to starting the job to finish it. That whole process is the thing that should be the reward, not getting it done or the grade. Maybe that's why they disagreed. Or maybe, or perhaps, to be more formal, perhaps it's the lack of reward is not a problem for them. Maybe they don't focus so much on rewards. And next question. You think that misunderstanding are the main cause of conflict? This is very similar to the third question where I asked if bad communication is the source of problem. So I wanted to see if things stood very similar or change. And in this case it did change, because previously in the third question all of them agree, but now a lot of people stood neutral. Maybe some of the people who answer that it can be the difference of point of view that can cause conflict answer to stood neutral, and the people who agree are the one who commented or answered poor communication before. Now, this question, as your teacher told me, I should have asked how many times they got in conflict. It should be a better answer, but it is what it is. I'm very sorry. And as expected, just 12% don't wanna say that they got in conflict, but I think life is a process that you at least have to be in a conflict to understand the world. I think it's impossible to have never been involved in a conflict, unless you're Buddha or Jesus or I don't know. But anyways, 62% said that yes, they've been on a conflict. 25% said no, although I'm kinda doubtful about that answer. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And maybe they're just messing around, being a little bit goofy. But I personally have been in conflict. Like I said at the beginning on the introduction, conflict is everywhere. It's very hard to not get involved in it. Although the smartest thing is to not get involved. Now, after all these questions, I came to a conclusion. The best way to avoid conflict is on effective teamwork. It's important to not only for organization to be successful, but for the people's well-being. So my idea was, we're social beings. We need to cooperate with another person to get the job done. Sometimes you cannot do it alone, all by yourself. It can be very tiresome. It could be a burden for you or overwhelming. And that's why teammates come to carry that lift and help you out. So as social beings, we need of other people to be in a well-being. We are a society after all. We are not alone. We have to respect each other. Right? So we gotta focus on teamwork. We gotta focus on the relationship in workplaces. Improve those relationships and improve trust between each other. because when you don't know somebody, you're not sure if you can trust them with such high task, or you don't know about their skills, so it can be kind of difficult. But improving the relationship, you can get to know each person. You can get to know the other person. What are their strong points? What are their weaknesses? And if they have some weaknesses, maybe you can cover those area because they're your strength, right? Then second point, open communication. Always be open to communication. Be open to new ideas and respect other people's point of view. We saw at the beginning how people said that it's important to respect others people's idea, and I totally agree, because the moment you start judging an idea, that's where things start getting problematic. Because when you critique somebody else's idea just because you didn't like it, that's when everything goes downhill. So we have to be open-minded, not closed-minded. Open to new ideas and to improve with each other's idea. I give you this idea and you improve it with another idea, right? Then clear directions and goals. We talked a little bit about being direct and clear. So having clear goals and clear directions on what to do, where to go, how to do it, what they say, what you have to do is very important. The moment the instructions or the ideas aren't clear, you'll start to struggle on your work, and that's where conflict comes. Then sense of accountability. If you did something wrong, you have to take accountability of your actions. If you judge or had a misunderstanding with somebody else, you gotta be respectful and be humble and accept that we as humans cannot always be perfect, and we can sometimes make mistakes, but it's better to be humble than to stay proud, because your proudness can cause you a bad reputation and cause others to see you differently as a person who doesn't like to show any weaknesses when we are clearly full of flaws. Then task delegation. Give each people a task to do. You do this, you do certain things, but especially give tasks if you know they're good at that area, or give tasks that they're not their strength, but it will help them improve with the help of a person that weakness is their strength. And communication skills, we gotta work on communication. The only thing that different us from animals is our way to communicate with each other. Communication is, I think, the most important aspect that we humans have. And sadly, in schools they don't teach you or taught you how to communicate, how to express your ideas the way you want, how to be clear, or how you want to get a direct message to the other person so they completely understand you. I would suggest that in school or workplace there's a special area to improve communication between teammates or classmates or co-workers. Then planning and organizing skills. Well, planning and organizing. We gotta be organized, we have to get order. If there's no order, there's conflict, and where there's let me rephrase that. If there's no organization, there's chaos, and where chaos is, there's conflict, and we want to avoid that. So being an organized and have special plans on what to do is very important. Then another aspect that every human being should learn is problem solving. Be logical and rational. And when we are not rational or logical, I think the answers you might give are basically pointless. Then collaboration skills. Like I said previously, or like I mentioned previously, we're social beings. We're meant to work with each other, just like an ant colony. Each ant works, and they work like a society to protect their homes and work together, because stronger, they're better and stronger. Same humans. When we know how to work with another person, the better it is to do the work. And then I think lastly, we should have an area especially for conflict. Maybe give some TED talk, some presentation about how to deal with conflict, because as much as we know how to avoid it, sometimes we cannot just evade the conflict and we get engaged with it. And since we're so good at disengaging, we forget about how to face the problem, how to approach a problem, and that problem can snowball. And well, that's it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.